Thank you, Presiding Officer, and my thanks to Ruth Maguire for bringing this important subject to Parliament. Some years ago, I hosted an event for the Samaritans in the Parliament here. They were congratulating one of their number for his very long service to the cause of suicide prevention. And I very much admire the work that the Samaritans undertake. But that was unfortunately very far from being my first contact with the issue of suicide. In preparation for this debate, I was able to identify 6 people with whom I've had varying degrees of contact who subsequently committed suicide. One was a teenage boy with a colostomy bag. This has a major effect on your psychology, your hormone balance. Becomes quite different from that which it would normally be, and he committed suicide from the depression that flowed from that. Another was one of my female colleagues at the Bank of Scotland, who had had a long history of depressive illness and was in fact in hospital when she escaped the close supervision that there was for her and was able to commit suicide. Another was a former colleague who had run a very successful part of our company and went off to start something similar for his own account elsewhere. And that business failed and he committed suicide. Another was a friend and neighbour who just found life too much. The details are difficult to come to. And indeed, when my father bought his medical practice in 1947, he did so because the previous GP had committed suicide, and that practice became available. And that's something I didn't know for many, many years. But what I want to speak about is a close family member who committed suicide. This individual showed no sign whatsoever of mental ill health that the rest of us detected. He expressed no suicidal thoughts in any of his comments to us, but it was clear that he was determined upon the course that he ultimately took. His preparations, the practical preparations, extended over a considerable period of time. The effect on the family, well, I, for my part, had to attend the mortuary to identify the deceased. That was not something I wish to do again. Police interviews to confirm that the circumstances were not suspicious, were a natural part of what happened. And of course, much more to the point, the family of this individual had to be looked after in their extremity. I'm delighted to say they've all come through it successfully, but it could have been very much in other ways. Now, as somebody who worked in a psychiatric hospital at the age of 17, death was not unfamiliar to me, and being with the dying and the dead was something that I was familiar with. But when it's this close and this baffling, because to this day I do not really know why this suicide occurred, it tells you an awful lot about the variety of human thinking and human life. Now, we all may have a little bit of mental ill health from time to time. It may be as trivial as a mental health sniffle, or it may be a major problem that requires medical intervention. But we'll not always see it coming, as we did not see it in our family coming for the individual I've talked about. But the one thing we can do, that quite a few speakers have referred to, is we can listen. And sometimes it's the briefest of intervention that is the most appropriate. When you see somebody and you haven't seen them for a while, perhaps there's somebody you're not very close to, just say hi. Don't say anything more. Don't ask how they are. Just say hi and see what response you get. It's a good start. And if they hesitate, that's a warning sign to you. Listen. That's the main thing we can do. Just listen. Do what they ask, if they ask, but don't try and guide people. That will often put pressure on them that isn't helpful to them. Thank you once again for the opportunity to talk about this very important subject. I hope that it makes a useful contribution to supporting those affected by suicide, but more importantly, by reducing the numbers of those who use this as the way out. Presiding Officer.